Hi, my name is Chris Adler. I'm the Director of Human Resources for the Sun Prairie Area School District. And what you see on the screen right now is our 2023-2024 proposed handbook language changes or additions that is being proposed to the school board on June 12th, 2023. Before I get started and talk through this document that shows the proposed handbook language changes, I want to talk a little bit about the background. So typically our handbook changes are brought up to us by employees through employee engagement work groups, or it might become within our team and we bring it to the work group saying we think we need to change somewhere because either there's confusion, it needs to be clearer, or maybe it needs to be removed altogether. And we work through that with our work groups as the year goes on. And that's how majority of changes come about. Other changes that happen typically are because of a policy change or maybe even a legal or law change that needs to be reflected in the handbook differently than whatever it was before. So I'm going to talk about the document now. So as you can see in front of you, we're going to talk a little bit on the first one about employee group language. And that overall heading is on the far left column vertically in text. And then the three other columns are the current language in the handbook that's listed. And in this case, it's the all employee handbook. And then there's a proposed language and then information regarding the change or the why behind it. We do have 5 handbooks altogether in our district. We have an all employee handbook and then 1 handbook for each of our 4 employee groups. Most of the changes typically happen in the all employee handbook, but sometimes there's specific ones to a specific work group. And we'll talk about those a little later. We'll start with the all employee handbook. So the first change I want to talk about is within the area of the substitute or A under section 3.01. We are adding some 0.4, which is the supplemental building or district-wide substitute, which is an employee that we put in our buildings now over the last couple of years that is permanently placed at the building or even district-wide to cover absences, because our daily substitute pool is growing, but it's still low in comparison to years prior to the pandemic. And most districts all saw that happening as well. And they're working through the same thing. So this has been a successful strategy to cover for openings. And it actually provides a really consistent environment at schools where we have someone that's dedicated to going into the classrooms at a specific school throughout the year. And each school has 1 to 2 to maybe even 3 if there are larger enrollment, especially at our high schools. To cover for absences each day. So we wanted to make sure that they were recognized within the substitute categories that you see here. The other part is around seasonal employees within the same section 3.01. And with those, in the past, we had tables that showed the exact amount of money that they earn per hour. We've removed those tables because in the end, we don't want to have to change the handbook every time there's a change in compensation. We already have compensation guides that will always be updated and do not have to go through the handbook process. Typically in handbooks, you aren't going to see wages in there, but our handbooks have had some of those from the past. So we're just kind of getting that cleaned up and making sure that it's captured in the right spot and it doesn't have to go through this change every time we have a piece within the handbook that we change wages on. The second part that we want to talk about in the all employee handbook is section 5.34, which is our personal appearance and dress code part. The one thing that we noticed in there, and this was brought up through the employee engagement groups, is that yoga pants very clearly saying that they cannot be a part of any type of wardrobe within the teacher. Sorry, kind of caught between 2 sheets here. So we wanted to make sure that we were connecting with where we are now, especially with yoga pants. We are saying that we remove the language regarding yoga pants and as they are a commonplace in workplaces, and it just made sense, especially within our more active roles in our district. Now, health insurance premiums are going to be clearly written within our handbooks. And you're going to see that in the past, we had something within those handbooks called the personal wellness plan assessment. And the personal wellness plan assessment was something that was put in place years ago, and employees would set up a 10 to 15 minute meeting with a health coach. in the spring or summer prior to the next school or plan year. And to the point of those coaching sessions was to talk about a person's current wellness, what do they want to get better at, and set goals for the future. If a person participated in the personal wellness plan or PWP, they were given a discounted rate towards premiums. Now, what we found is that typically those goal setting sessions have not equated into savings or different behaviors, or even how people access our insurance differently. So working with DNSSM and our health insurance committee and our insurance broker USI, we're going to be removing the personal wellness plan assessment and instead utilizing a yearly required training of how to utilize our insurance differently and how to best utilize our prescription coverage, how to utilize our employee wellness clinic, how to utilize our insurance in general. And there's two reasons for that. Is one, we want to make sure that our employees are informed of what's offered to them, but also to show them that they can be consumers within that and actually save us all money in the end by making good decisions about where you get prescriptions at, how you use employee wellness clinic to cut our costs in general, which eventually then should affect our premiums and our overall utilization of insurance and the claims that are behind it. So the point is we're going to replace the PWP with a very clear training around what we offer and how to use those offerings. And we feel like that'll be a much better use of time, and it'll help our employees actually know exactly how to, again, utilize insurance. So as you can see on the left of this page, the personal wellness plan language, that's going to be completely removed as we move into utilizing a more video training of what our insurance has to offer, and again, how to utilize our health plan in a way to lessen our overall cost of using our health insurance and benefits. Moving to all employee handbook section 8.02, we're going to be looking at this has been kind of written out to the school board various times throughout the year that in the past we were in an annualized payroll cycle for our hourly employees and for all employees. And really with hourly employees, we should have a traditional payroll cycle where you are paid for time worked. Annualized meant it looked at the whole year and then split up your wages based on how many weeks per year you would work within those pay periods. So now we're going traditional. It's you clock in, you clock out, and whatever you clock in and clock out or use PTO time for a pay period will be paid out. So we have to change from an annualized payroll cycle within the handbook to a payroll cycle language within the handbook as it's described here. The payroll dates are just reflective of that because going to a traditional pay cycle, we need to make sure that our payroll dates are consistent with our pay periods of every 2 weeks. This is talking about our unpaid days language. One thing, I'll just go to the far right column. One of the things that was confusing for people around qualified time was the daycare, or if another school district closes, we have to say that those types of days don't qualify because those are kind of out of our control. As a district, we do understand that daycares and other district schools do close at specific times, and you can use personal days if that's what you want to do, our vacation days during those times where something closes outside of what our school district closes like. Okay, now going into the professional educator handbook, there's a couple things, not a lot here, but two. In section 9.05B, we felt like the duration of unpaid child rearing leave, which is something we provide for our employees, didn't have parameters. It just said leave shall be limited to 36 weeks. It was 36 weeks in career, in a school year. What is it? So we were saying that it really should be within one fiscal year. So that's July to July. It helps us because that's a lot of our leaves are calculated on. And we felt like this was a good way to keep it consistent. The other part that really went through our professional educator work group was the concept of we have restricted day language within the professional educator handbook, which on the left, you can see that There's certain days that we said that personal days could not be used. Probably the biggest ones that most people know about are Fridays in the month of May and June. The reason that has happened in the past is because many times on Fridays, it's not that we have more absences from our professional educators. It's actually because we have more subs that don't want to take those days because it's getting nicer. People want a longer weekend. So our subs pools are even lower than typical. What we have put in place, we've put an incentive during the month of May over the last 2 to 3 years, where if you get a certain amount of points per month, you actually gain a bonus at the end of the month of $100. So if you sub within our district 5 days in a month, you get a $100 bonus at the end of the month. And that's been really successful. And what we do now is we incentivize Fridays a little bit more in May, and we found that to be successful this year, where we said if you sub on a May Friday, you get 2 points towards that incentive. And we found that our fill rate was higher and manageable throughout the month of May. So again, we have to put more effort on building our sub pool rather than restricting our employees. So we worked with our professional educator work group because this came up in the survey around handbook changes many times. And we felt like it made sense that we remove that restricted day language and allow people to use their personal days when needed. We already have some restrictions on how many per day. So it's 15 professional educators in a day. Any day can use a personal day. And the reason we have restrictions on that is just because obviously we can't have too many out, because once we won't have enough subs to cover people. And we have our typical sickness, our typical professional development, our typical field trips, whatever might be happening that also takes subs up. We've had a restriction of 15 days of any work day, 15 personal days taken on any work day for a long time now. And that's been a parameter we've been using. And that seems to help with coverage. And we feel like, why have an extra restriction on Fridays in May or any other times around holidays? It just doesn't make sense. Because typically, again, it's not because we have more absences for our employees. It's because we actually have a lack of subs, which when we incentivize it the right way, we tend to have enough subs to adequately cover for. And that's been a good discussion throughout the year. In-house substitute pay, this is kind of like the seasonal one where we're taking out the exact number. Like down here, it says shall be paid at $28.75 per hour, up to 7 hours maximum. And it talks a little bit about the calculation on how to do that. We basically take the average master's degree, the average bachelor's degree, and create an hourly wage from that. So instead of saying the actual number, we're just talking about the actual formula here right in the middle of the proposed language, because then we don't have to keep going in there and changing the amount of money. We just keep the formula the way it is. We have reassignment pay. Again, we're moving the curriculum rate or the $24 an hour because that will change from year to year. And we want to make sure that we keep up to date with that and not have to continue to go into the handbook to change that. The professional advancement hours, what we needed to do was, if you remember back in April 10th of 2023, we reconfigured that educator compensation framework, and there was 2 things that were removed. And that was around the hard to fill language. We no longer have that hard to fill language within our professional educator framework. We're using that money to put towards creating a more of an average salary calculation within how we use the percent that the board approves each year to create the adjustment for every professional educator in our district. So we remove the hard to fill language. We also are taking out the stipend amount, because if you can see around professional development hours, the $18.50 an hour and any stipend amount that is also connected to that, which is down towards the bottom. We feel like, again, we don't want to have to keep changing the amount in there. We just want to talk about how we calculate that from here on out using, again, our in-house substitute rate that we talk about in here. So it's just a little bit clearer for people to understand what we're actually changing and that we don't have to change it every single year. In the support staff, we again, restricted days very similar to professional educators. It didn't make sense to remove restricted days from professional educators and not do that for our support staff employees. thank you for listening, and I hope that this answered questions as you listen to what handbook changes we have proposed, and I appreciate your consideration.